Hi, welcome back again. I'm glad you can hear. And this is part three. And tonight, we've already talked about the early church fathers. I talked about Son of Man coming on clouds and put it real briefly to you, and the word parousia, how those were used in the Olivet. I want to make the transfer over now when we're talking about the second coming. On any event like that, there is a when, where, how, and why. Well, tonight, I want to deal with the where. And we start with in Acts 1, when Jesus ascended, and I'm laughing at what some preterists say. He was standing there with them, and he ascended up there, and a cloud took him out of sight. So they witnessed his rising up into the air until he came into the clouds and then disappeared into the clouds. So they saw that. That's why they are looking up. And it was the angels who came down and said, "Why are you guys looking up?" And whoa, hey, he's gone, right? Well, the angel says to him, what? This same Jesus that you saw go up will come in like manner, in the same way that you saw him go. We go to Revelations 19. Jesus comes through the clouds, comes back to earth. Zechariah 14:4. When Jesus comes, his feet shall stand on the Mount of Olives. When Jesus returns, where is it? It is back to the earth. It is back to Jerusalem. When we look at all the context of what goes on in Revelations, it is still focused, of course, on Jerusalem and Israel and all of those areas. And so when Christ returns, I mean, you guys will actually say that, and you don't have an argument with that, that when Christ returns, he returned to Jerusalem. But here's the thing that maybe you're definitely missing. See, John said, John said in Revelations, every eye shall see him. And of course, preterists have every kind of excuse in some why that doesn't mean a physical seeing him. But here's the thing. You say he claimed he came in AD 70 to Jerusalem and was destroyed, yet nobody saw him, so you claim it was in a spiritual coming. John, who was living in Asia at the time, and we're talking about probably after AD 70. John was living in Asia. And he said what? When he comes, we shall see him as he is. For it hasn't appeared yet what's going to happen or what we're going to look at because we're waiting. When it happens, then we're all going to know. But we here in Asia shall see him when he appears. Then all the churches in Revelations, all 7 of the churches, they too were to be witnesses of his second coming. They were all to experience the resurrection, the rapture, those that were dead, and the bodily change that we'll get talking about a little bit later on. But all these churches, all these people were to experience those events. So if they were to happen there, then we somehow or another, we don't explain it, we don't know, but it says that Christ will appear and every eye will see him. What the means is, or how God applies that and does that, is not relevant to the idea that he will appear and that he will be seen by everybody, and when he comes, it will be to Jerusalem. Now, Zechariah 12 and 14 both talk about this coming. When he comes, every scholar agrees that 12 and 14 are second coming prophecies. And in those prophecies, it says that when he comes, that God will give protection to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and he will give them the victory over the armies. You've got to look at it. Verse 14, in fact, of 12, it says, and all the ones that survived that came against Jerusalem, those people will come up year after year to Jerusalem to worship the king. The proper futurist understanding in scriptures is that when Christ comes, he comes to this earth and he sets up the millennial kingdom on earth, and he will rule from Jerusalem over the kings of the earth, and his name will be all one throughout, and no one will be teaching war anymore. All the pruning hooks will be the spears will turn into pruning hooks, and plows will, all the war machines turned into plows, like in Isaiah 2. The whole idea is that when Christ rules, he rules over all the nations with a rod of iron, and he dwells here on the earth. Now, preterists deny that. They have that post-millennial type of thinking. Of course, I am a premillennial. And that is what we hold to. So that when Christ comes to Jerusalem, it is not dash off again real fast or anything else like that, but he gathers the people together, his elect from the four corners of the earth. He gathers them together because he has changed them. Those who were alive were changed, and those that were dead came back to life. And that is his army. Revelations 19 talks about that. The ones that are dressed in fine linen and white their robes have been washed in the blood of the Lamb. That whole idea there is that we return with him. That's what it says in Zechariah 12 and 14. He comes with his saints. 2 Thessalonians 3. At Christ's coming, he comes with his saints. Paul said it even, and quoted from there. So that when Christ comes, he comes with those that have been raised and with those who have been changed, who have gathered together with him. Remember, in Jerusalem, the Christians fled. They were not gathered together to come to Jerusalem. They were told to flee. In Revelations, they are told they're going to be gathered together with Christ to come to Jerusalem, to destroy the armies that have gathered against Jerusalem. Now, why would Jesus come back with his army to destroy the army in AD 70 that God sent? Does that create any problem in your thinking? Because what you want to do is say, well, he came to spiritually conquer and defeat the army. Where do you find that in the Old Testament, that Christ sends an army of judgment against the people, and on the same day he spiritually fights against that nation and destroys them? And then, of course, we know the Roman nation was not destroyed for another 300 some years. So that is called an inconsistency. That's why preterism does not work. All right, so wrapping it up here, where his return, based on Acts 1, is to Jerusalem. Zechariah 14, his return is to Jerusalem. So please read 12 and 14 of Zechariah and understand it is not talking about a spiritual return, but the literal physical return of Christ and how that will change the world when he comes. All right, thank you for listening. Hey, don't forget to click that subscribe button and get notifications when I do send these out. I'm having fun tonight, going through a whole thing. All right, have a good night.